Welcome to the Marketing Made Great podcast. In each episode, we'll be sharing with you the tips, tricks, and techniques from the top sales and marketing experts from around the globe that will make marketing simple for your business. Here's your host, Mark Traeger.
I want to welcome you to another episode of the Marketing Made Great podcast. This week, our guest is Tricia Clements with Mutt. Now, I know that sounds like a crazy name, but I tell you what, it's kind of interesting, I think, when she tells her story. So, Tricia, why don't you kind of give us a little bit of background about you, what you're doing, and what Mutt is all about for our audience, okay?
Okay, thank you. I'm Tricia Clements, and my company is muttbutts.com, and our butt only has one T in it because they might be mutts, but they are 100% loved. So Perfect. That's where the name is. I do a social media management, and I do specialize in pet businesses. So that's why I've got the Mutt name. I love pets for my whole life, have always loved pets. I've got my rescue dog, and when I was growing up, I actually worked at a veterinary clinic in a small little town. So I've always had that connection with pets. And when I started my business, I wanted to somehow have a connection with animals. And so I love doing things online, trying to figure out different techniques, things that with technology that can make things easier. So That's really how I got into it, and I wanted to have the focus towards pets. Now, I do have other businesses that I manage, but a lot of the businesses that I do social media blogs for are pet businesses.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, marketing really hasn't changed that much. Mm-hmm. Whether you're marketing pets, money, banks, whatever it may be, marketing is still marketing.
Yes.
You know, one of the reasons why I wanted you to come on is Tricia and I met at a meetup, and she made an interesting comment about and talked about some of the pet peeves of branding. And once I heard her, I thought, man, we've got to get her on the show to share her perspective of some of those pet peeves.
Sure.
So why don't we just talk about some of those right off the bat? What do you think is your number one biggest pet peeve?
I think my biggest number one pet peeve would be your domain name and businesses making sure that they own their domain name. That is something, and these pet peeves have come across because I run into businesses and I'm kind of thinking, well, you know, they need to do this and that. And I'm like, well, it's simply because they don't know. And so that's one of the things I like to try to do is to educate business owners, because your domain name, most businesses, they're not in this business, so they don't know the specifics. Wow. One of the most important things about your business's online identity is making sure you are the registrant for your domain. It is fine. Have somebody else build it, please, but make sure that you go in and buy that domain and are the owner, because if you're not, and something happens, that means that whoever's on there is the registrant, is the legal owner of that. And that's your identity.
Yeah, no doubt. Identity. Yeah, absolutely. So is there a resource that you would recommend that they can go and check to see if they even own it?
So the first thing I would say is to go ahead and Google who is WHOIS, and you can look on there and see. Now, the one trick is that nowadays, because a lot of people have that marked with privacy, you're not going to be able to tell who the registrant is by doing that. But typically you can tell where it is registered at. For instance, a lot of times it's GoDaddy, name silo, something like that. So you can tell. So if you see it's at GoDaddy and you have a GoDaddy login, go and log in and find out. And so that's the main thing. Now, I will tell you, recently I did that for a client, and GoDaddy has changed their things, and it simply says contact information. I'm like, well, wait a minute, that's not the same as registrant. But you actually have to click and say you're going to edit it, and then it separates it out and tells you. I don't really like how they've changed it, because they it's kind of hidden. You have to go and know what you're looking for. Right. But I would definitely say make that a priority. I have seen instances where people have not done that. Someone has bought their domain for them and then taken off, and where they are sending all of their online traffic is their website. And then the next thing you know, they don't own it and it's gone and they can't get it back.
Yeah, I mean, I see that from time to time as well. And you're right. Ownership is mission critical.
Yes.
Especially as your business starts to grow and expand.
Yes.
That's a very good point. Well, what are some of the other of your pet peeves?
I would say another thing, and these are a little more technical, but a lot of things. So you've got your domain, and that's just your URL, your website. So muttbutts.com, that's just that name. Your host, that's what hosts all of the information that creates your website. I would say your host is really important too, because a lot of people just think it's just a host. I'll get the cheapest, easiest thing out there.
Yep.
And I would say with that, cheapest is not the best, because you've got to make sure that it's fast. A lot of times if your website is slow, you're not going to get that traffic. So you've spent all this time sending people to a site. You got to have it up and have it working. Your host has a lot to do with that. If it's slow or down, people are going to your site and they're not finding it. So, and the other big thing is a lot of people say, well, I went ahead and got my domain and I went ahead and hosted it with the same because it was easy. I would like to tell people to make sure that you have your domain name and you're hosting with separate companies. It is a good security practice, because let's say you've got them at the same place and somehow you've got some security issue and somebody hacks into your website, there's a possibility they could get that and get control of your domain. So because of that, just an extra precaution, have them at separate places.
No, it makes good sense. And you're right. I mean, you never know in today's world, especially with some of these larger brands. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them have multiple domains that they own.
Yes.
Or thought they had it registered and found out that somebody else has it, and creates all kinds of problems.
Yes, definitely. And one thing I have seen as well is with the hosting is I like to tell businesses, if you are not in the business of being an agency and actually hosting websites, if that's not your business, go find someone else. There are lots of resources like Mark and I where we can refer you to people that do that hosting, because it's critical to make sure that you don't miss your yearly deadline. And one of the big things I've seen recently is on your Google profile, your Google My Business profile. If your website is down, Google is now picking up on that and removing your website from your profile.
Oh my gosh.
So that means that if somebody goes to Google and finds you, it doesn't look like you have a website. And then at that point, somebody said, I'm not sure I'm going to trust a company that doesn't have an online presence.
Sure.
And the thing is, it's like, well, so then you go in and you pay your host and you get it back up. The problem with that is I saw one recently where it took 3 weeks for Google to approve when they got their hosting back.
Oh my gosh.
So here you could be for 3 weeks and Google saying you don't have a website.
So let me ask you, you brought up something that, I hear that is either controversial or maybe questionable. You brought up Google My Business.
Yes, I love Google My Business.
You think that's an important part of that branding process as well?
So I have two things that I think are the top two for branding. Number one is your website, and number two is your Google My Business. And I work with clients extensively on their Google My Business profile. I have clients, and that's all I work with them on is their Google My Business profile. There are a lot of changes and a lot of things, and it's specifically for businesses that service a local geographic area. It's where you come up on the Google map. People are looking for you.
So, what kind of things can I find in Google My Business? Pictures, comments, what?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Everything. Yes. Okay. So with Google My Business, let's see, when was it? This year, I guess. Earlier this year, Google Plus went away completely.
Right.
And so Google's really focusing all their attention on Google My Business. So you don't have how Google Plus was where the actual comments are, where it was kind of like a Facebook. You don't have that. It's a bit different. It's but you can, as a business, post on it. You can people can ask questions and you can answer them. It is not like you would find on a Google page where somebody just goes on and posts tons of different questions. It's more like a restaurant. Well, or do you have seasonal hours? Do you have outdoor seating? Things like that, where, people got questions, and as a business, you need to be in there responding to them, giving them the correct information. There's a place to add pictures on there. That is where your reviews are held, your Google reviews. So that
really? I didn't know that.
is critical for a business. It's where your reviews are held, and that's something that a business really needs to be on top of to help get them found online.
Okay. So what, one of the things too that I've always heard is email addresses are critical as well.
Yeah, that's the next on my list. You're reading my mind.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it is. That's the next thing on my list is email. So one of my biggest pet peeves is when I go out and I'm networking and I get a business card and it has their website on it. Okay, good. They've got a website. Then I go down and look at their email address, and it has one of the free emails, Gmail,
right.
Bell, South, AOL, any of those. That is a huge pet peeve of mine, because you've got your domain name. It shows that you really need to have your email be an email at your domain name. It's professionalism. It builds trust. It shows that you're serious about your business if you're there with an actual email address. And to me, it's really critical, and shows that you care about your business, you're professional. It only is, like less than $6 a month. It is, you can go through Office 365 or G Suite and get that. And it really, to me, is very important.
Well, and a lot of hosting companies too provide email free of charge as well.
They do. I will caution about that if you are a company that is subject to either HIPAA or FINRA, that you need to make sure that your email has those qualifications in there. And for those of you, those are HIPAA's, the healthcare, and FINRA's, the financial. So if you're in an industry where you are subject to those, you need to make sure that, and I know that G Suite and Office 365 do have those. You do need to go in and I think check the boxes. But you are right. There are free email addresses a lot of times with a domain, but you do need to just watch for that.
No, that's a good point. So if you had to keep going, obviously it sounds like you wrote up a little list here.
Oh yeah. So
I'm going to let you run with it.
I could have a book long list.
Oh no.
I tried to condense it.
No, that's great. So what do you think's next on your list?
The next thing, so we just talked about the email, making sure on your business card that it's there. So the next thing I would say, do you have a business card? I know a lot of times I go out networking and I want to exchange business cards with people, and sometimes people won't have them. Now, one of the things I tell people is like, okay, I understand if you're just starting networking because you really are not sure what kind of business, where you're taking it. You're starting up and you don't know where you're going. I understand not having a business card. However, I would say go run to Office Depot for $10, pick up a sheet of the blank business cards and print some out so that you have them with your information. Just being able to exchange that information is really important. The contacts that you make, is just really important in your business. I can tell you that I wouldn't be where I am today if it hadn't been for all of the people that I met at WordCamp Atlanta in 2012. Just the contacts are really critical.
Sure.
So I would say have a business card. And I understand it's 2019 right now. So yes, I also agree that you should have a virtual business card, an e-card, whatever you want to call it. I have one of those where basically if I'm out and about, I always have business cards with me, but I do like to have it in case somebody says, I don't have any pockets to put a card in. I'll say, give me your number, and I'll text them, and I have it already saved in a little notepad on my phone where it says, Tricia Clements' business card, great meeting you. And it has a link, and they can see the information. Then they can also download the little card where it imports it into their contacts.
Well, interesting. So What kind of services or service provides something like that?
That is one thing. I have been looking for some new and different ones. There are some out there where you can, because the one that I got a while ago, I haven't been able to find out how to add additional onto it. But there are ones you can just Google virtual business card or e-business card. And some of them I've seen like a free versions where like you get X number of texts a month and then you go to a paid version.
Right.
And so I would definitely look for something like that. And it's not, so right now, I don't use it that much. So a free version would probably work well. If it gets to a point where, you see you're starting to use it a lot more, then you can look at other options.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's keep going down the list.
Yes, and while we're on your business card, Go
ahead.
Okay, so one of the things I want to say is how you write out information, whether it's your business name or anything like that in the domain, and also for your social media. Use what is called Camel case. And I was doing it before I knew what it was called, that there was a word for it. Okay, so for instance, I have the domain triciaclements.com. So if I'm going to put that, I don't use that. But if I'm going to write that out for somebody, I'm going to have the T is going to be capitalized for Tricia, and the C is going to be capitalized for Clements. There are two reasons to do that. One is when you're looking at something visually, your brain just understands it a lot better than if it's all jumbled and all lowercase. Your brain just reads it faster and understands it. The other thing is for accessibility. So I'm just talking business cards, but let's say you're putting things online for people to see. Well, there's the accessibility problem. People who are visually impaired may have a screen reader, and the screen reader picks up on that Camel case and will read it, and it's much easier for them to understand. So for two reasons, I would say to do that. I also, when I do a website address, I tend to not like to put the www in front of it just because I think it looks busy. So one of the examples I give is that recently I was driving through Atlanta and I saw a big billboard right there off of 75. And it was a big billboard. I'm like, oh, they paid a ton of money. These billboards are not cheap.
Right.
It was a real estate agent, and his website was www, and then whatever his name was, all in lowercase.
Right.
And my brain just kind of went a little chaos. I was like, I just couldn't even register and function with it. It was, and I'm like, oh no, who did he talk to that they approved this? This should not have been approved. Right. They should have taken that WW and then done Camel case, and it would have been much easier to read. So he's paying all this money, and the billboard is, as far as the website, is not really good. So.
No, I understand that, and you're right. To me, when you have the Camel case in there, your brain actually pauses for a moment, and you remember it better.
Yes.
Because if you're driving, it looks like you said, it looks like a blur.
Yes.
You can't remember it. You don't even know what it was.
I do have one that I'll mention, and it's a local restaurant that I've seen, and it was, I went, I loved the place, and their menu, they had their all of their social media contacts on it, and it was all in lowercase. Well, I love going to House of Blue, and hopefully it's okay if I use their name. Love going there. Great restaurant, fabulous meal. Waiter was wonderful. But when I looked at the menu and they had on there the social media, it said House of Blue, all one words, and I read it House O Flu.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, oh no, this is a good restaurant. I don't want to be thinking flu in my mind. But that's what I'm saying. That's how I read it. Right. Even though I knew where I was, it was House of Blue. It's a great restaurant. That was simply how my mind read it.
No, I understand.
So that's an example.
Yeah. No, that's not a necessary. That's very important.
Yes.
So what other things have you discovered?
There's one other little thing, and it's more of a pet peeve of mine.
Excuse the pun, right? Pet peeve.
Exactly. Is the websites. I like to make sure to tell clients to make sure they have a Favicon set. So
what's a Favicon?
So a Favicon is when you've got your web browser open and you've got the different tabs. You know how we always have 40 tabs and the music's running, we don't know where it's running from. So those are your tabs. And if you'll look at those tabs, you'll notice that a lot of them have the logo of the company that's actually there. So if you go to muttbutts.com, you'll see my logo at the top, the little purple dog on there. So that to me is just a little icing on the cake. It makes it look nice, and that it's really easy to do and doesn't take much. It just adds that extra professionalism into it. And because there are sites that I noticed that you go to and you'll know that they don't have it set because I think it's a little gray globe on there if they don't have anything set. And I just, for me, I think it's just a little extra. Also, the more you can put your logo out there, the better it is.
No, definitely. Yeah. And it also, too, it helps you differentiate yourself in those tabs.
Yes, absolutely.
A lot of times you can be spotted right away because now I've got at least 25 icons up, and I happen to see yours sitting right there.
Yes.
So I can find it instantly.
Find it easy. Yes. Yeah, so it helps when you're got all the tabs open, they know exactly which one is yours.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what else? It sounds like you've got a good list here. Keep going.
So those were my top 5. Now, I can go through a ton more.
Well, let's not go through a ton. Let's do half a ton.
So we were talking earlier about Google My Business, and that is for people who don't know that term. That's your Google profile. And we talked about your domain. So one of the things with your Google business so your website to me is your number 1 for your online reputation, and Google profile is number 2. A lot of people have problems with their Google profile because they don't follow Google's guidelines, and they can get suspended.
Really?
Yes. And if you don't follow the guidelines, you can get suspended. And what that means is if people go on there, if somebody has a review, you as the business owner cannot respond to them. Positive or negative, you should be responding to all of your reviews. So when you are suspended, you can't do any of that. And also you can't respond as the business owner to questions on there if somebody asks a question. So it's really important to make sure that you are maintaining that and that you are the owner on the account. Just like your domain. So obviously with being a Google platform, you don't actually own the site, but your account, you need to be, the user level is owner. I have seen time and time again where business owners have, whether it's a social media manager or an employee, go in and manage their account. Well, that's fine, but they need to be at a manager level. And as the owner, you need to be at the owner level because let's say the employee doesn't work there anymore. The social media manager isn't managing their content anymore. If something happens and they leave, the business owner can still have ownership of that account. I have had numerous people contact me where I have had to go in and reclaim their account. So basically they had no access to their Google business profile because somebody else had been handling it, and then they weren't anymore. And that's one thing I believe in too, is making sure that the business owner owns their stuff. And so, if I'm managing an account and then for whatever reason we're not working together, I will make sure that they are the owner and that they have access to it. There are people out there who will not. And I can tell you because I've had to reclaim those Google accounts. It's not easy. It's time consuming. And then it took the client money because, I charge for my time to do that. So that's extremely, extremely important. The other thing that I've seen are things, they're called citations, and basically just all kinds of different online directories that have your business's information, your NAP, name, address, phone number, then website, all of that information. So, and your Google profile is one of those. But that basically kind of is a baseline, helps you build so that people know that you actually are a business out there. One of the things I do work with businesses for helping them and working with them on the business citations. Now, one thing that I have seen is that sometimes companies will, as a what they term a SEO practice, will create a separate website that that the marketer owns, and then use that site and call that on all of the citations the business's website when it's not actually.
Right.
I would warn businesses to look for that, because you want your website that you own to be shown on all the directories as your website, because basically all of those places that have your website and any kind of traffic that goes to them, you're basically over time building up what I call SEO juice, search engine optimization, getting found online.
Sure.
And so if you're sending all that to someplace else that you don't own, that's a bad thing, because if something happens and that site goes away, all of that time and effort you've spent on that domain are gone. So don't
Absolutely.
have someone convince you that to use a website they own as yours on directories.
No, that's a good point.
Which is very interesting. It's surprising when I first saw it.
No, I understand. That makes good sense. We've been talking a lot about online, we talked about that business card.
Yeah.
Well, what are some of the other branding pet peeves that you've seen offline that maybe frustrate you or kind of catch you off guard? I know one of the big ones for me is getting a correspondence, like a letter or something, and it just plain white paper.
Yeah. I do like to make sure that I have all the contact information. A lot of times I'll get something and it'll have a lot of words and stuff on it, but then I'm like, who sent this? Where's the logo? Where's the website and email address? That's one thing too, when you send out your marketing material, the fact that you've got your website, your phone number, it shows that it adds that trust in there. They can look you up online. And I also like to tell people to, some people want to say, well, I want to have my business and it be professional, so I don't want to be like the face of it. Well, right. I would tell small businesses that adding your face to it adds that trust and credibility, because somebody can look you up online and say, is this person for real? Because there's so many online, there's so many scams that sure. People want to make sure that they're dealing with someone reliable. And sure. So when you're getting that marketing material in the mail, can you look on there, see their logo, look them up online and say, yeah. And then a lot of times they may look them up on LinkedIn and see that other people in common, and may contact somebody. I got this flyer from someone. Do you know them? Sure. So I think making sure that you're being consistent with all of that is important.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I mean, consistency all the way across. Mm-hmm. And I see a lot of people miss those key marketing opportunities by not making sure that everything, as I call them, tattooed.
Yes.
Anything that goes out of your hand should have something tattooed on it.
Yes, exactly. With all of your information, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive a little bit into the social media pet mm-hmm. peeves that you might have.
Yes.
What are some of those?
Well, I would say a lot of times people get on social media, and you have to remember it is social, and they'll say, want to get on Facebook or Twitter or whatever and start selling. And you have to remember that when you're on the platforms that I like to do at least like an 80-20 or 75-25 as far as the lower amount being the sales part, because just think about it. If you're consistently being sold to, that's something I don't want to see that. So whereas sure. you're sharing information that's important to maybe your industry, informational, fun stuff, and then here and there you throw a sales bit in, people are more likely to come and read that and be interested in that. other than just expecting to sell all the time and get people to stay interested.
Yeah, but don't you too see, and from your experience, that a lot of time people put content up that really have nothing related to what they're doing? I mean, I've seen like one had some of the funniest videos I've ever seen, but none of them related at all to their business.
Yeah.
And I thought, what the heck's going on here?
Yeah. Well, I would say, have it somehow be related, even if maybe the video itself didn't relate to it. Maybe they could in the comments say, well, this is why I thought this related to my business. If it triggered something and then that's why they posted it, maybe they need to then follow up and let everyone else know, because, we all think a little bit differently, to let them know about posting.
Sure.
One thing too, I do want to comment, I've had this question numerous times, are about the different social media channels and the username. So a lot of people come and they kind of freak out and they say, I've got different usernames on different social media channels and I don't know what to do. So I would say, if you're first starting off your business, if you can get all of the same social media usernames, that's the best thing. Keep in mind that Twitter right now has the shortest with 15 characters. So wow. I would say to do, and really, shorter, and by shorter, I don't mean like 2 characters, but the shortest you can get it, and on all of them would be the best, but at least 15 or under is really good for Twitter. Now, if you've already are out there and you've got your social media platforms and you already have your usernames and a following, I wouldn't stress too much about saying, well, I've got to change them. Because a lot of times what people do is, what do? They go to your website. That's why you got to own your website. You got to have information on there. Then they'll go to your social media icons, follow you on Twitter, Facebook. So you don't necessarily have to have them the same. It's a good practice if you can start off. But there's so many social media channels nowadays that it can be hard to pick up and get those.
So from branding, what's your thoughts on LinkedIn? I mean, is that a mission critical for B2B and B2C?
I think for B2B, it definitely is. For B2C, it really kind of depends. So a lot of my pet businesses, sometimes they don't focus a lot on that. But, then again, there may be some business owners out there that need a dog daycare, pet sitting, things like that. Right. So, you never know with that. I think that that LinkedIn, I really do recommend everyone be on there, at least have some type of visual presence on LinkedIn for sure.
Yeah, and I have to comment on your LinkedIn profile. It's pretty awesome because it's not the blue little starry thing next to your picture. It's got a graphic there that gives people an insight to what you do. Okay. And again, you're taking advantage of that real estate that's there for free.
Yes.
I think that's pretty awesome.
I think, I know that Instagram only gives you your profile pictures, but most of the other ones allow you to do what's called a cover. Right. And that's where you can put that information. So definitely take advantage of that. Yeah. Spend a little bit of time and come up with something that's got some information about your business and put your cover up.
Yeah, and there's a lot of free templates out there that you can search for.
And you can just Google. Each one's a different size. Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, they all have different sizes. Just Google it and do something, put something up for sure.
Yeah, and I think you're missing an opportunity by not doing a good LinkedIn profile. Yes. And I'm going to, and you probably know Greg Burkhalter, the LinkedIn guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would suggest that if you're struggling with your LinkedIn profile, I'd reach out to him because most definitely. He's fantastic. I heard him speak, and 45 minutes after, literally right after he finished speaking, I walked out and changed my LinkedIn profile. I was so upset how bad it was. Yeah. And I really didn't realize it was the little things that was causing confusion.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the things that I wanted to talk about, because you are a fantastic speaker.
Oh, thank you.
I've heard you speak 2 or 3 times, and you're very good at what you do and how you communicate. Don't you think that's kind of one of those, I don't call it a pet peeve, but one of those little secret things from a branding perspective that people seem to miss out on sometimes?
Yes, I do. So I will tell you that speaking did not come naturally for me 5 years ago.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yes. 5 years ago, I probably would have freaked out getting in front of an audience and speaking. So I will tell you what helped me was most of you all may not have heard of this platform. It's a thing called Periscope, and it was before Facebook Live was available to the masses. People went on Twitter and went on Periscope, which was Twitter's version of Facebook Live.
Right.
So I haven't used that in ages, but it was, so basically I would say now go on Facebook Live. I just started going and doing live stream and doing it consistently. And that really helped me be able to just start talking. And it helps so much with the public speaking. And so, now I speak at various word camps. I've got different presentations. I've got one coming up in Pennsylvania, different ones across the Southeast and then in Pennsylvania. But it definitely was something that did not come natural. So,
well, and I understand that, but you are, well, I didn't know that you had problems with it because you command the stage very well.
Oh, thank you.
As a fellow speaker, I know good when I see it, and you're good.
Oh, thank you.
If you get a chance to hear or listen to Tricia live and in color, you definitely want to take that opportunity for sure.
Thank you.
So, as we kind of start to maybe wrap up a little bit here, I wanted to, I don't know if you want to call it a pet peeve, but from a branding perspective in marketing, what do you feel? How do you feel about video? Is it a fad? Is it something like you said? You made a comment. It could be as simple as Facebook Live. Mm-hmm. But what are your thoughts about video?
Video is definitely here to stay. And I definitely believe in video. And it doesn't have to, say, well, you're talking about video, I've got to do YouTube or I've got to do Facebook Live. The one thing I would say is determine where your audience is and where you're comfortable. Go there and do that. But I love video, and I definitely think video is here to stay. But I will say one thing is to also make sure when you're doing video that you can do it right. There are, for instance, on YouTube, is a way to upload your transcripts, and that's another accessibility thing. The same with Facebook. If you do a Facebook Live and it was a long and really good one with a lot of information, download that, get it transcribed, and upload a transcript to that video.
Right. No, it's great. We're actually going to be adding a special segment to the Marketing Made Great podcast, hopefully debuting next week, called the 2-Minute Tuesday Marketing Moment. Uh-huh. And it's going to be, I can't guarantee it'll always be 2 minutes because most people know me. I can't do anything in 2 minutes.
I can't either. I can relate.
No more than 10 minutes though, but a weekly nugget of information that you can digest and use. Mm-hmm. But believe me, you got to start somewhere.
You do.
Because
that's
when
it.
I started this podcast or started doing video, it wasn't the best. And you can see a huge improvement over time, but the key is to start.
Start and keep up with it. That's the
Absolutely.
thing. You don't have to say, well, I'm going to go on and do a 20-minute video once a week. Do it. If you've got 2 minutes in you, do 2 minutes. If you have 5, you build up over time because you get used to it. So just keep up with it, be consistent, and it'll work out over the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to experiment a little bit. So you've been in marketing for quite some time. What are some of the things that you're starting to see that, is grabbing your attention or you're investigating a little bit more?
Let's see, investigating a little bit more. So I have really over the last year focused a lot more of my time on Google My Business. I know we talked about that earlier, but I would say that that is really an area that I like to really drill down on and focus on with my customers. You've got to have that Google My Business profile and make sure that it's optimized and you're keeping up with it daily.
Right. No, I understand that.
Yeah.
So, obviously, because I hear you talk and you're always expanding your topics, what are some of those things that you're doing professionally to kind of stay current?
Sure.
Are you listening to different podcasts, reading? Who are you kind of following, if anybody?
I like to, because I do a lot of things with the local SEO, Google My Business. I like to follow a lot of different things online. There's, Moz Local, Bright Local, and then White Spark. All of those, I like to read their blogs because those are the ones that are doing some of the surveys. So it's like, I'll say, Google reviews are really good. Well, where's to back that up? Well, Bright Local did a whole survey and they came up with these points as far as why that's important.
Sure.
So I like to keep up with those. And then I don't go on as much as I want to, but every time I go on Twitter, I learn something. Twitter is a great place to really go, especially if you've got a specific hashtag you're searching, is to go on there. And I kind of sometimes will just follow local SEO and just see the different stuff. But that's really, a lot of it is online. I do have several different podcasts, and the names are escaping me right now, but several that I listen to. Some of them are short ones where I'll just listen to a short couple minutes here or there. Those are the ones that I really like. I think there is Digital Cast, and it's like a 2-minute thing once a week. So that's nice to have just a 2-minute. You just got it in that, and you're done. But I just like to stay current and keeping up with basically the brands that are out there doing the research and keeping up with it, making sure that I'm following them and reading their information.
All right. So from everything you've said so far, what do you think is the one thing or most important thing for your own business that you believe that you wouldn't be where you are today without it?
I would say that would have to be the WordPress community.
Really? Wow.
Yes, absolutely. So those of y'all know I do social media. I do not create websites for people, but I'm very active in the WordPress community. I go to the meetups. I go to WordCamps. I speak at the different WordCamps. I was in Orlando last week, and it's just really meeting the different people there, seeing the different things that go on. And it also helps me with my customers. So for instance, if I'm writing a blog and I just go and log in and start doing things, that's not good. I like to ask the questions, when was your website last backed up? What's your security on your website? Yeah. Before I just log in and who knows what. So those are things that the community has helped me with. And if I have questions, I know the people in the community that do good work and that I can go to and ask and refer people to as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. And one of the things that gets me excited about technology, growth, marketing, and branding is in Atlanta, we have these geek ups, is what I call them. They're meetup groups.
Meetups,
I call them geek ups.
Yeah, they are.
Because, really, there's over 1,200 of them here in Atlanta based on just about any topic that you're interested in, from XR to MR to all kinds of stuff. But what I'm saying is that find one that fascinates you, because for me, a lot of times it connects the dots. I've got an idea. How can I execute it? And then by simply going to a geek up, sometimes there's a roadmap already displayed from the speaker that they bring in. So that's a great way to challenge it. And WordPress groups, no matter where you are always some of the friendliest and most sharing groups I've ever met in my life.
It really is. The WordPress community is they're willing to really help everyone. A lot of times, so at the word camps, they have what's called the happiness bar. And people are like, what is that? Basically, it's usually a room with people sitting there ready to answer your questions about, I can't figure out something on my website. And so it's really a giving community. Everybody is really willing and able to sit to give and help people. And I definitely agree. Meetup.com, definitely go on there and find different groups. You know, there's something for everybody on there that can help you in your business.
Absolutely. Tricia, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. So if somebody wanted to get a hold of you and talk to you more about some of the things we've talked about, how would they reach you?
So my main thing is my website, muttbutts.com, and that's muttbuts.com. And I've got all of my social media links, but that is also Mutt Butts on my social media, all the social media channels. So you can find me there, and my email is just tricia@muttbutts.com.
Fantastic. Tricia, I appreciate so much you coming on. And, who knows, we may have you back on again very soon. Thanks a lot for coming.
Love it. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the Marketing Made Great podcast. If you want more details about today's show and the resources mentioned, go to www.csmediagroup.com/podcast. Please be sure to send us your comments about the show and follow the link in the show notes to give us your suggestions for future show topics. With your help, we'll continue to only get better. Now, you can contact us directly with your topics at podcasttopics@csmediagroup.com as well if you'd like. Be sure right now to stop everything and subscribe to the show in iTunes or on your favorite podcast source so you never miss an episode of the Marketing Made Great podcast. While you're there, write us a positive review if you like the show. Also, we're going to ask that you spread the word to your friends about this podcast by visiting us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram with all your comments. Now, when you're posting, be sure to use our hashtag Marketing Made Great when posting so we can add to the discussion online in all the social media platforms. Now, our show is produced in our studios located in Atlanta, Georgia's premier business accelerator, Atlanta Tech Park. I'm your host, Mark Traeger, and I want to thank you so much again for taking the time to listen to this week's episode of the Marketing Made Great podcast.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed the show.